My chest every morning. Hello, taco dinner!
Are you ready to rock?
No, obviously not. Sorry, I don't know what that sounded like, but it looks really painful. I apologize for that. That would explain why you're wearing those things. Some of us came prepared for the taco dinner. Oh, my name is Katie Burgess. Thank you all so much for coming out. I am the Executive Director of the Trans Youth Support Network. Through which one of our youth members, McDonald, also known as CeCe or Honeybee, has organized the CeCe Support Committee, which you are all here in part supporting. CeCe Support Committee. Come on! CeCe, or Krishan, or Honeybee, is a 23-year-old African-American transgender woman who was brutally assaulted outside of the Schooner Bar in South Minneapolis. If you don't know it, it's right next to Rainbow. A very fun place. The attack was instigated with racist and transphobic slurs, and also with a glass beer mug to CeCe's face that punctured her cheek. When the police finally showed up, she was the only one arrested for the murder of somebody in the kind of melee of a bar fight that ensued after she was so brutally assaulted. A man died in that incident. She was the one arrested and charged with his murder, even though she was arrested out of a pool of her own blood after being brutally attacked for basically being black and trans. And the police refused her appropriate medical care for about 2 months, during which time a golf ball-sized abscess developed on her cheek, and she was in and out of solitary for the time that she was in there. So, through kind of various access points to the community, the social services that she had accessed, and TYSN, she kind of started getting the word out about her situation in jail, and the community came together to get her out of solitary, get her appropriate medical care, and now she's out on bail. You don't mess with this girl. You don't mess with Honeybee. This is what happens. This is what happens when you mess with Honeybee. You eat tacos. You eat tacos for her. She will make you eat those tacos for justice. Justice tacos.
It's so good.
This should have been called Tacos for Justice.
I know, I'm sorry. I just wasn't thinking fast enough. But luckily CeCe was. So she's out on bail now. She's facing trial either in December or January. We're not totally positive yet, but keep your ears open for that. Thank you all for coming, and please, give freely of your monies, as many of you already have at the door. It's beautiful up there, and now I'm assuming somebody's probably going to talk a little bit about Carlos.
Yeah. I would also like to say, with Brad's on his way up here, that
Hola, buenas noches, ¿cómo están ustedes?
Good evening, how's everyone doing?
Lo voy a hacer en español para hacer un poco la multiculturalización que vemos acá, ¿no?
I'm going to do this in Spanish for the multiculturalization that we have here.
Antes que nada, ¿qué es MIRAC? MIRAC es una organización, un comité que trabaja para detener las deportaciones que están pasando a nivel nacional y específicamente aquí en Minnesota.
So first, what is MIRAC, which is one of the groups sponsoring this event tonight? It's a committee that works to stop deportations going on nationally and then even more so here locally in Minnesota.
Y este día específicamente estamos tan contentos y tan orgullosos de que por primera vez el movimiento pro-inmigrante está trabajando con la comunidad LGBT.
And today we're really excited for that the immigrant community is working with the GLBT community.
Porque todos sabemos algo bien concreto. Si no trabajamos juntos, vamos a seguir siendo una minoría que siempre va a ser aplastada, ¿no?, por los que tienen el poder.
And we know that concretely, if we all keep working as a minority, we're all going to be basically crushed by the small minority in power.
Así que un aplauso bien grande para ustedes porque creo que va a ser la primera actividad de muchas actividades que vamos a hacer con la comunidad LGBT.
And so a round of applause for everyone here because I think this will be the first of many events that we do together with the community. So this is a fundraiser both for CeCe McDonald and also for Carlos Montes. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Carlos, he lives in Los Angeles, California. He's a longtime activist. He started his activism in the late 1960s. He was a co-founder of the group called the Brown Berets. I don't know if folks have heard of the Brown Berets. They were inspired by and sort of similar to the Black Panther Party, started in the late 60s to organize within the Chicano and Latino community in California and in the Southwest. Specifically against police brutality, for better conditions in the schools, for basic human and civil rights, and for a better society. So he was involved since then. He's one of those people from the generation of the 60s that didn't stop being active after the 60s ended. He's stayed involved and active straight through up until the current day. He's, he experienced, if people have heard of COINTELPRO, it was basically the government repression against the Black, Latino, and other movements in the 1960s and 70s. He was one of the victims of COINTELPRO at that time, and there was a grand jury that was convened against him and other people. Basically, he had to deal with that throughout the 1970s. Now, he continued organizing. He's been involved in the community in Los Angeles with the Chicano movement, continuing to fight for the same struggle back from the 60s, specifically working against war. When the war with Iraq broke out, when the U.S. started waging war against Iraq, he formed a group called Latinos Against War, started organizing in the high schools where the recruiters were starting to go and try and recruit more and more Latino youth. So he started that group, Latinos Against War. He also has been deeply involved in the immigrants' rights movement. In 2006, when there were massive demonstrations all around the country, in Los Angeles there was a demonstration of over 1 million people. He was one of the main organizers of that demonstration and has continued working with the Southern California Immigration Coalition. He's done solidarity work with movements in other countries. Specifically, he's done solidarity work with Colombia and other countries where people are killed every day because they have the audacity to think that they should be able to be in a union, for example. So this is a person who has been dedicated and fighting since the 1960s, day in and day out. He was involved here when, y'all remember when the Republican Party had their convention in 2008 here, I imagine y'all remember that. Especially some of you in the front here, I probably have a pretty clear memory of that. Carlos was involved in helping to organize the march on the first day and the march on the last day that was like the legal permitted march that, and so he was here and helped lead those things. So when last year, about a year ago, when the office of the Anti-War Committee was raided by the FBI, they had a warrant to do that, and they had names of a whole bunch of people who have been involved from around the country in organizing against the Republican convention. Carlos was one of the people named on that warrant. So several months later in May, his house was raided in Los Angeles after they did all the raids here and in Chicago last September. They went through, did the same thing they did with the raids here. They took all of his political files, all of his computers, cell phones, all that kind of stuff. And then once they had him in the back of a squad car, an FBI agent came over and started interrogating him about the political activism that he was involved with. Anyway, he's facing 6 felony charges. It's totally bogus. He's being attacked because of his political work. So we're trying to help support him, raise money for this amazing fighter who's been fighting for 40 years now for his community and for in solidarity with everyone else. So thanks everyone for coming. There's more information about your group on the table.